Good. So, hello, CSS Camp. I'm the opener, and it's 1 a.m. where I am. And I just want to sort of like invoke roll up on all of you and put you in a bundle and then carry you around everywhere I go. I just want to bundle an audience. That sounds fun. Anyway, bundler joke in case you're into bundlers. So, today the talk is all about color. And color on the web starts kind of simply, right? You get pound FFF, and then you can make some text white, and then you get a different color from someone else. And maybe you're just copying and pasting most of your colors, but maybe you're also in the situation now where you're starting to learn that all of those numbers are like three channels. It's always three. Why is it three? And you know what? Where are we going with color, or where are we behind? And so today I'm going to break all this down, and I hope that you leave this talk going, "Wow, color is a lot more interesting and complex than I thought." And CSS is really giving me a lot of ways to take care of it and handle it. So get ready for a jam-packed session on learning all about color, because who would have thought color is so full of awesome stuff? Okay, so here's the first problem in color land for CSS on the web, which is that displays progressed way faster than CSS could keep up with. And you can see that here. What we see in the center area in this color is what you currently have access to with sRGB. So if you use RGB, if you use hex, we'll go into this. That's what we're currently using. But what we want is to use all of this, because that's what your screen can show, or the device that's on your, like in your pocket. Like, it has an amazing set of colors, and the web is just like, yeah, but sRGB is this common denominator across all these screens. It's been working since 1996. Like, we don't need to change it, right? And well, I think we do. And we'll talk some more about what that is. But that's one of the problems right now, is that CSS does not actually give you access to all of the colors on the display that you're on. And hopefully that makes you a little bit upset, and it makes you curious as well. Okay, so problem number two, consumes more memory, right? So it took a while for browsers to feel good about how they could implement this, because it was going to take a lot of memory. And well, it makes sense, right? You're displaying almost twice as many colors, like sometimes in the trillions of colors. And in order to access that and store that data, you need more memory. And that concerned people. And they were like, well, do we really need it? I don't know. And it turns out that performance nut has been cracked. And we'll get into that. Okay, problem number three, there must be an awesome JavaScript API, right? You need to be able to get colors, set colors, create colors from JavaScript, manipulate colors, like anything CSS can do to a color, you should have a JavaScript API for. That's just something that we like to keep. It's like feature parity on the web. So, and it turns out this is a really complex API, and it has a lot of needs. And well, anyway, it's getting hacked on. It looks really rad. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Problem number four, current color spaces don't offer perceptual uniformity. So that might not be something that you've ever really cared about or thought about before, but we're going to get into why this starts to really matter, and why CSS is adding additional color spaces that help you handle the problem of perceptual uniformity. Awesome. So where can you play with all these? Because there's a bunch of links I just shared and a bunch of demos. Most of them only work in Safari Tech Preview, the latest one that you can get. But Firefox Nightly does have some of these, and some of these color features we're going to talk about, they already work in Safari, and you know, they've been delivering HD colors in that bigger color space since, like, I don't know, 2017. I think I have a slide on the exact date. So anyway, let's get into what we have today in color level 4. So the CSS spec rolls out in levels these days instead of like a big massive amount. And so in case you missed it, we have color here with 4 digits in it, a hex color. Like, that is normally 3, or it's 6, right? Like, why is this one? Hey, this one's 8. Like, what's with the extra information? The extra information is alpha. That's why I call this hex with alpha. So what CSS has given us is this ability to add an alpha channel onto the end of a color. So we no longer have to specify alpha in like a different way, or in a new function, like RGB had RGBA and HSL had HSLA. We're trying to get away from that towards this functional notation. Functional notation, hopefully you've seen HSL, it just has no commas, right? So we're kind of leaning into a space delimited list, which CSS loves to do. We've got HSL, another variant here where we're including alpha at the end with just a slash. Notice we're using the same function to access both of these. And here's the same thing in RGB. So we've gotten rid of RGBA and color 4. We've gone full in on RGB, 3 channels slash alpha, 3 channels, then some alpha. You'll find that's pretty common. Okay, here is HSL lightness versus lab lightness. And this is when I was talking about perceptual uniformity. So if this green is the same brightness to you as this, I guess again, I, it's not, it's totally brighter. And look, in HSL though, it says, nah, this is 50% lightness, 50% lightness, 50% lightness. Well, that's just not the reality of what I see. That's not my human eye perceptually looking at this. And that's what lab is for. So that's why we're comparing these two here. And look at lab. The L in lab for its 3 channels is lightness, and it's perceptual human-based lightness. This one says it's almost middle gray. I'd agree. That's almost middle gray. This one says that's super bright. That's up in the 88 range. That's pretty bright. And this one over here says 66. It's like, it's bright, but it's not like super bright or whatever. So anyway, you know my very scientific explanations there of brightness. But anyway, I thought that that was really interesting that HSL calls these all the same, but really they're not. And this comes into play when you're building design systems and other things that become calculated, and you want to have like alerts and successes and all these different variants. It comes into it be really important that you have perceptual uniformity in those scenarios. Or anyway, you'll find if you go research perceptual uniformity, you'll see why they've been hacking on this problem for a long time. It was we needed color spaces for people and in the ranges that we could see. So let's enter this other color function that came in color level 4, which doesn't have a whole lot of browser support except in the latest Safari. And that's in the latest Safari. So we'll talk about some colors that are in Safari, since 2016, 2017, but these ones are new. And this is LCH and Lab. Both of these are color spaces that deal with perceptual color spaces. They're made to be more perceptually oriented towards a human. And even Lab is even made to be sort of a better one for gradients because of the way that it moves through colors in its space, it should have a better gradient. And we'll get into that. But look at the syntax. 3 channels, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, all the way across the board. So CSS color level 4 is introducing new functions, but it's also normalizing things and trying to make it so you have to think about less. And let's talk really quick about device independent color, because this is kind of a fun concept to think about. Like if you think about CMYK, which is a device dependent color space, right? There's 4 cartridges in your printer. And that's very device dependent. It's like if those cartridges aren't there, it can't produce color. Whereas something that's independent, like sRGB, LCH, and Lab, they can basically request a color from somewhere, and the device is it's up to the device to be able to handle how far and how bright and how vibrant that color request is. That's a little bit of how to explain it, but it's almost like it's color being specified agnostic to any sort of like amount of inks or any supply. And this allows it to be a little bit more nimble and move around. And so we're getting more device independent colors because they allow us to reach deeper into a display. Anyway, there's other reasons, but that's just kind of fun, right? Device independent, device dependent color. Like, I guess, yeah, some color is like super dependent. Okay, I'm hoping this color set comes through on your screen because this is where things kind of get really interesting and really important is that the one on the left here should look relatively muddy in comparison to the one on the right. Now, the kicker here is on my screen, it is super more vibrant. It's like night and day. It makes the one on the left look very undesirable, which is sRGB. By the way, these are the maximum colors that we can get into a gradient like this. This gradient was really popular on Twitter and I think looks really great. But when you look at it next to this one, you're just like, no, I don't want sRGB. I want this one. And here, this is it live. So this is just the in Safari Tech Preview. That's what I have this presentation open in. And hopefully you can see a vibrance of like a difference in colors just coming across your screen. So it's likely that all my colors are getting squashed to fit into sRGB so that they can ship over wire and then come back on your screen. In the future, we're going to have much better streaming capabilities. I bet that like transfer all of this information so that you get the high vibrant colors. But anyway, it's one of the hard things about testing these colors is you have to have a capable screen and it does look different in person. So you're getting a picture of the difference here, which hopefully is still compelling. You're like, oh, tell me more about Lab and its ability to make these gorgeous gradients, right? Okay, so let's talk about color picking because this is often where a lot of the initial colors come from. And here I'm using the Photoshop color picker to go through RGB and HSL and find a hot pink, but then I switch it to Lab and I pull it into a even more vibrant hot pink in Lab and look at the comparison between the two. I'd rather have that more vibrant hot pink. I don't know about you. And here's an example from the Safari DevTools that shows how many more pinks you actually get in when you're using a high definition color, right? In this case, I'm using display P3. We'll talk about that one here in just a second. But look at all these more colors. And this is the cutoff line for sRGB. This is what sRGB has, and this is what all these new ones have. This is what I want to teach you about today. I want to teach you how to access these. Like, this is the jam, right? This is the best pixels on a screen. These need to be in your interface, right? We don't want these duller ones. We want these vibrant ones. Well, I mean, if you're going for vibrant UI. Anyway, look at everything we're missing. And each color has a different amount that's missing. Like greens and blues, there's a lot more greens and blues than there are other ones. So just kind of interesting. Each of these, because they're perceptual also, there's like our eyes can see more of a certain color than others. And so we lean into that within the color space. So let's talk about this last little part of color 4, at least in terms of like spec additions, and that's this color function. See this color parentheses, and now instead of specifying LCH or lab specifically, you're essentially saying, well, here's a color, and then here's a color space by name, which also opens up the possibility for you to bring your own color space to a web page, which is a whole other talk that you could give. And I'm not going to go into that right now, but that's what this opens up. But you're specifically saying which color space, and then you're passing in three channels, right? What else would you pass? Anyway, you can also do /alpha, I believe, in there. So anyway, that's the color function, LCH, lab, this ability for us to have functional notation with spaces and then an alpha at the end. So if you want to check out the color 4 spec, it's down here. Browser support is not very good on a lot of that stuff, except let's talk about HD color in Safari since 2017. So they shipped support for display P3 4 years ago, which offers 50% more colors than sRGB. It makes sense why they shipped that. That sounds like an awesome gain, right? Super vibrant colors to be used on all your displays on your screens. Like, I definitely want that. Here's how you can use it today. You can put it behind this media query, dynamic range high, and specify, like here, I'm just changing a custom property to use display P3. That's it. I've created kind of bigger systems that use this. We'll look at like a couple in a second, but that is, I just gate things behind this. Now, notice that it's dynamic range high and you don't specify how many colors it can go. That would be a vector for privacy invasion. Like someone could track you knowing how many pixels you can, or how many colors you can display. So you get to ask this sort of vague range. And if the range is high, you know you have access to a higher range. You don't know exactly, which is typical CSS. You're going to make a request for a color, and then you can have some fallbacks as you go down. So I'm using this as an enhancement on top of a otherwise sRGB neon glow. I'm making this a super pink neon glow, and we'll check those out in a second. And I just wanted to show this again, the color range working right here. You can see it's behind the media query, and I'm just giving it a nice little look. I was overwriting some hex, right? Anyway, so let's talk about color level 5. So color level 5 brings in color manipulation and some other cool stuff. And this lays down some additional groundworks for us to be able to work inside of these new color spaces and then manage our design systems inside of these color spaces. Let's talk about color mix. Boom, at its most simplest, you give it a couple of colors, color mix red, white, you get back something pinkish. It might be pink exactly, I don't remember, but you can mix colors just straight up like that. You could mix 20% of black into something. Oh, here, that's what I do right here. I take my brand color, I say color mix, here's my brand, and I want 25% of that to remain, but the rest of it be black. Same thing here, but I'm doing it with a little bit less. So right here, look, I'm kind of making a little bit of a color system. Text 1 and text 2 are both mixing in more or less black. Kind of cool. Then we have this amazing new one coming. It's called CSS color contrast. And color contrast lets you specify a list of colors to be compared against a base color, and it will pick either the highest contrast one, or it will pick the first in your list to pass the contrast ratio that you specify. So you can specify that you want a ratio. Anyway, let's dig into it, right? Okay, so here's an example in this little video where I'm cycling through the lightness of the background color, and the foreground color, which is using color contrast, has a list of appropriate colors. And look, it's picking a darker blue or a lighter blue based on whether or not which one passes the most contrast given that background color. And it's dynamic at runtime. It just always works all the time. It doesn't know or care about anything. It's going to run that function and come back with a contrasting value. Okay, so here it is at its simplest. You just say color contrast, and you give it a color, right? So here I'm setting text color, and I'm calling this class always passing contrast, because as long as this text color is being used against a var BG here, it will always be appropriately have contrast. And what it does here, when you don't specify anything to be against or specify a ratio, it defaults to black and white. And so this will just pick black or white, depending on whichever one is going to have the most contrast with the background color. That should be very enticing. And it gets even sweeter. So here you can do color contrast. You specify your brand color. Right here, you say verses, and then you give it a comma delimited list. I said text subdued, text light, text lightest. These are like three different text colors from my design system. And then I say what ratio I want. And it will go find the first one to pass that ratio and use that as the text color. And I just love this function. It's so awesome. But it's secondary to maybe to this one, which is the relative adjust syntax for color in CSS color level 5. So here I can just take a hex, just some random color, and then I can say LCH. So I'm invoking the LCH function, and I'm saying from color. Look at that. My first parameter is saying extract the 3 channels from a given color, and then use them here with a hotkey or just like a little short name, which would be LCH. But in this case, I replaced L, instead of just putting them all back in, I replaced L with 75%, and that's why I'm calling this an absolute change. I changed whatever this color's lightness was to 75% and then kept the same chroma and kept the same hue. So it's gonna be the same color, a similar amount of vibrance, and then, well, the same vibrance, and then it's gonna be lighter, right? Okay, so here's a relative change. You can do calc on those variables. So here I'm taking chroma and dividing it by 2. That's super, super cool stuff. So that is not the end, because I just wanted to see how much time we have. Let's see. Okay, cool. I have a whole bunch of demos that I wanted to dig into these in person so that we could see these colors. So first, let's dig into this one and just kind of check out what I'm comparing. So here's my linear gradient. We can see it inside of the tools here, which is just a red to cyan. And then in LCH, I'm doing a red to cyan, and look at the difference. And so one of the deal here is that LCH and lab work within a different color space. And as one color is being, it literally has to like travel to the next one, right? That's what a color gradient is. The shape of the color space is determining how good or bad that is. And you might even see tools that help you make better gradients because they add additional stops so that the gradient doesn't go straight through the center and enter this. When things go straight through the center, they get this gray dead zone. That's because they kind of had to go through the center of a cylinder, like in HSL or RGB, and they went straight through the center, which is, well, it's lighter, and that's where we go pick our colors that we want to be sort of diluted. And well, here they are showing up. And so what a tool might do is give you 3 or 4 color stops for your gradient so that you can avoid the center. You like literally train it to go from straight to here, straight to here, straight to here, straight to there, and you're curving around that center dead space. Pretty cool tricks to get around it, but why not just have it built in to have better gradient color picking spaces, right? Okay, so that is demo number 1. That was kind of sweet. Here's a demo of all of them kind of together. So I did my best to pick colors in each of these color spaces that represented the kind of goal of the gradient. And here you can see sRGB still has some dead space here. There's some gray space here in comparison. And if you look over at these other ones, oh, look, yeah, this is really gray space up here, huh? If you look at the other ones, it's mitigated. It's still kind of present. It's still a little there, but if you look really close, you can see some really nice, vibrant, like pinks to purples here. Like that looks awesome. That looks awesome. Um, and yeah, so here we're comparing display P3, lab, and LCH, each of these picking colors from their own space and then being turned into a gradient with this conic gradient text. So here's the display P3 conic gradient. Like, look at this. I'm just passing in colors and these ones and zeros. I'm essentially saying, give me the maximum amount of color that you can from that channel. So this first one here, that's red. I'm just like maximum red. Give me the displays. Maximum red. It's just so cool that that's how I can request it. And so that's why that works that way. And a lot of these also allow you to reach further than a maximum. So I don't know if display P3 does, I can't remember, but I know LCH and lab allow you to reach like over 100% into something. And it's up to the device that's handling the request to decide how many how bright or whatever color it is that you're looking for, where it is in that space, and it will find the brightest one that it can. So it's kind of cool. Like how that works. Anyway, so those are the conic gradient examples. And since the conic gradient one kind of felt really bright and vibrant and cheerful and cylindrical, anyway, I decided to make a linear gradient one. So here is cyan to hot pink. And look at the one in sRGB compared to lab and LCH. I mean, these are awesome. Those look so good. Lab is supposed to be the better one at interpolating in a color space. And I think I see it. I think I see it in this like meeting area where these start to bridge into each other, but I don't know. And I still think there's work to be done inside of these browsers to match the specs. The specs do specify like how some of this stuff should work. Um, so anyway, it's all still a little experimental. This is all behind a tech preview, right? But this is what we're headed towards, is these more beautiful and way more vibrant gradients that we get just for using some alternative colors. Okay, let's check out the best neon color set. So I found this really awesome really popular design. I think it was on Behance or I don't know, somewhere. Anyway, someone had identified the best neon colors in hex, and I was like, oh, really, in hex? Well, let me go find what they would be in display P3, and I had a blast. And they look really vibrant. I mean, on your screen they probably look neon, and you're like, yeah, that's neon, and that's fine. But if you opened this up, and I provided the links, so if you have Safari Tech Preview and you put it on an iPad or put it on well, yeah, the display P3 ones will work on your iPhone and iPad. So if you have those, give it a shot. But colors are just so juicy. It's so good. And if we look inside, like, what am I doing here to kind of get this purple? Here's my dynamic range high neon purple. If I grab this, look, it's actually kind of bluish. And look at how little we have in addition in blue. And that's kind of interesting. So as I pull this up, a little bit more purple right there. We could see that shift. I'm actually going to just move this and watch it shift. Look at all the more colors you get display P3 in the green area. Look at these. Look at how much more vibrant that is. I mean, you can see it down here. Look at how neon green that one is. That looks so good. And that's probably why it has a whole bunch of greens to choose from in that space. Look at that color. That's so good. Okay, so let me just drag down here a little bit more. This is why I wanted to open up the dev tools and kind of show this stuff. Yeah, what time am I at? Okay, that looks good. I'll pull down here, get into the yellows and the oranges and back into the reds. So cool. And if you're really looking closely, like, check it out right here. Oh, wait, maybe right here. Do you see there's more blacks to choose from? I never really understood that or cared very much until I started making really high definition shadows. And I noticed that there would be this banding that would occur, just like kind of low res gradients, right? There's not enough color to gradient in the darkness on some of my dark themes. And so what's really nice is in these display P3 spaces, we get those additional colors and we can make blacker blacks, richer shadows. And it really shows. These things look so tangible and amazing on a device. So that's one of the things I like about these color spaces for shadows, is those more blacks really allow you to get like in that blue range and those other ranges, like just really dig into the color space and get a nice rich black. Because remember, shadows aren't black. They are always tinted based on what they're laying on top of. So hopefully you're using a little bit of hue in your shadows, but now we can use a little bit of hue and reach into an even richer color and really have those shadows pop. So I guess you don't want your shadows to pop, but you want them to be rich. So anyway, okay, so that was that example with the best neon. And look, I destroyed that color here. Let's get that back. Okay, here's Beat Saber. I was like, hey, the logo looks super cool. I wonder if I could do that with display P3 and neon colors and all this stuff. And look, it looks awesome, right? And if you see this on a device, like, you know, it's pushing the boundaries of your pixels on your screen. It's just like glowing on it. It might as well be neon on your device. Anyway, try opening that up on your iPad. All of these things are really fun if you have a high definition display at Safari Tech Preview right now. But that's kind of what's happening here. CSS is doing this. Safari might be in the lead in terms of like CSS implementation of this, but eventually we won't need to just use Safari Tech Preview. It will be available everywhere, and all these awesome colors and tools will be available for you there. Okay, so here's one more another example. This one's using color mix. So I built a theming system that essentially just goes through a very kind of, like, I set up a bunch of text colors using mix. So I set a brand, and the brand is a blue. I believe it's like a cyan. And I just go, I color mix in lab, and I give it the color, and I say how much it should stay, and mix it with black or white. So I kind of lighten or darken all of my colors in this whole system, all from one little spot. Look, so here's text to light. Here's all the light colors. Here's all the dark colors. And here's the dim ones, right? Kind of cool color mix. It's pretty handy. It's like like a simple way and a nice way to think about colors in like your initial way you're maybe trying to make calculations on them. So anyway, let's get into some more of the other ones though. So here is color contrast, and I love this one so much. Let's open this one up in full screen, debug. Boom. Select that text. Let's even bump it up. Oh, let's bump it up over here. Bump it up. Okay, so if I go to the section here, I find the background color. Can I adjust the lightness from here? No, it's a custom property. I got to go to blue 9. Okay, blue 9, where are you at? Down here. Okay, blue 9. So I'm going to adjust the background colors so that we can see essentially this color function right here operate. So this color function right here, this one says color contrast blue 9 versus blue 4321. I'm just like, hey, here's four design colors that are on the kind of opposite side of this one, right? This is blue 9, so I start with blue 4321. I'm trying to provide the first one that matches the color first, but we'll get there. We'll play with this a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to take blue 9 and I'm going to change that background lightness and watch it flip. Yeah. Right, okay, it was kind of subtle. It's kind of subtle. Let's do this. So we have on blue 9, we're not specifying how much, and that would be 2 uh, double A. So I think I saw it choose a less bright or like a less contrasting color right there. Let's give it a test. Here's blue 9. Should see it choose. Nice. Okay, cool. So there's our flip. So it's flipping between our colors. I don't think that's actually white text. It's not. It's really light blue. Just like these are not black. They're really dark blue. So cool. Okay. So the way that I was able to make that choose a softer color was by specifying it's okay to go to 2 double A. By specifying a ratio, it will find the first one to match the ratio, as opposed to if you don't specify a ratio, it just picks the highest contrast item. So it's a very versatile, very resilient function that is made to help you pick contrasting colors given a background, make it easy so that you don't have to do all this manual work and that you can kind of just build it into your color system. I'm so excited about it. I'm so happy that this is even prototypable in a browser. Okay, let's go to the last example here. This one is using relative color syntax. So I talked about how colors can be broken down. Now let's bump up the dev tools here and that you can sort of extract them and do work on them. And check out these. So these are saying these are 50% darker and 50% lighter. So that means I'm taking the lightness out of them, like extracting it and doing some calculations. So let's go take a look, go to the lighter one here, pull this open. So we've got here, BG. Is this still a little tiny? Let's boost it up. Yeah, this one here, this function, this BG text, see LCH from var color. So it's being passed a color in a custom property here because each of these is green, pink, and blue. And so one color contrasting function here and the relative syntax can work across all these different scenarios. It's CSS, right? It's just a class that I put on there and it's going to cascade and everybody gets it. So this one, but that's what's cool is that var color changes. See, here's the color being set here by green. If we checked a different one, it'd be different color. But anyway, so we're saying from green, calculate the lightness times 2, right? This was supposed to be lighter, so we want to have more lightness. We're doubling it. Whereas if we were to go look at the darker of them, this one is doing it times 0.5, so it's sort of dividing it by 2. I could probably even write divided by 2. And that's how we get, here, let's kind of manipulate these live. I bet I can. I remember really thinking that chroma, if it was all at 50%, oh no, it's not. Chroma doesn't do values like that. Yeah, so here we go. I felt like darker colors always needed to have some chroma dropped. So this was like I was tempted to in my demo to do a calc here, but I wanted to keep the example simple. So anyway, that's relative color. That's color level 5. There's all sorts of cool stuff. Here's all the demo URLs. I also pasted them in the Q&A area. And I really appreciate you, CSSCAMP, for letting me get excited at 1 in the morning about color. And thanks for listening. I hope I set a good tone. And it's getting hot in here.